In today's episode, I'll begin my review and reaction to the new 2026 film, Send Help. So please send me some help before we get into this review. I'm going to need it.
Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up.
Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the dub. Send Help was not a movie that was particularly on my radar, especially heading into this early 2026 slate of movies. You give me 28 Years Later sequel, Marty Supreme, something else that looked interesting, I think the Chris Pratt movie. I did not expect to see Send Help, and Send Help was something that kept popping up on all the Survivor podcasts I listened to. Hint, hint, nod, nod, wink, wink for some of the references made during the movies, but it seemed like they had a sponsored deal with Survivor. I've seen a bunch of Survivor contestants going out to the theater to check out Send Help, so they definitely had a little bit of a sponsorship between the two parties there. And one of the more attracting factors, I think, from an exterior motive is people wanting to see Sam Raimi. I know Sam Raimi's this real big director and he does these scary movies and all that stuff. However, the only real Sam Raimi movie I've seen is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so I wasn't going to chase Sam Raimi movies. I've never seen the original Spider-Man movies. I don't really know much of Sam Raimi's style. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, when I look back on that movie, it kind of is just mad to me. Probably like a two or three star, 2.5 star, that type of range. For me, not bad, but wasn't really worth the watch. And you see the premise of this movie is interesting, where it's Rachel McAdams, and everyone's interested in Rachel McAdams. Dylan O'Brien, we'll get into Dylan O'Brien, but I think many people were excited to see Rachel McAdams in a role like this. For me, it was giving kind of Red Eye expectations because we see her in, I think she's the one in Red Eye, that movie Red Eye with Cillian Murphy. And I don't know, back to what I was saying before, the premise. This woman who's this, office worker has to get stuck on an island with her boss, and her boss is like this young douchey frat bro, and she's the one who actually knows how to do shit, so she becomes this like horror figure towards him. And although this movie is classified as a comedy horror, which is something I wouldn't usually dive into, I do see the horror aspects. However, the gore aspect was hyped up, in my opinion. The people I went to go see this movie with were like, oh, I heard it's really gory. There's one scene that's super, super gory, but besides that, there's really like a handful of scenes that really get into the goriness of it. So I don't think this movie wasn't really about gore for me in Send Help. However, I did really, not really, but I did like this movie. I would recommend this movie to people, especially those theater goers. If you get that little 1 month, one free ticket a month pass, this isn't the worst movie to go check out in that time, I think. I don't know. I thought this was an enjoyable experience just from an overarching standpoint. I think this movie is definitely worth a watch to go check out in theaters. It's an interesting take on something I've never seen done before. There are some cheesy moments of it, and there is a couple plot twists at the end, I won't lie, that kind of triggered me, but in terms of spoiler free reviews, before I get into my thoughts and reactions, I thought this was a solid movie. Rachel McAdams plays her part really well. Dylan O'Brien plays his part really well. Unless you don't like his laugh, like I did. I thought his laugh was really fucking annoying, to be honest. But it is what it is, and it's a compelling story. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, that's for sure. There were points where I had to look away. There was a couple parts where I literally physically had to look away. Interesting one. Would recommend for everyone to go check it out. Even though my score may not be as high as you'd expect based off that review at the end, I would say, in this, I don't know what a horror movie is. Maybe someone can explain to me, like, what's a real horror movie? Because this wasn't speaking out to me as like that's a horror movie. This was kind of, well, I guess because comedy horror is such a weird genre. But not to go back to that, but I just think that's such a weird dichotomy of genres where you're kind of trying to play these both sides. I didn't laugh that much during this movie, but we had an unk next to us who was chuckling at basically everything that was said. Take that as it will. Didn't ruin the movie. My Avengers Endgame experience. I had a drunk lady just laughing at every single thing. Nonetheless, check this one out. Let me know your thoughts down below if you saw it or if that short review compels you to go see it or not, let's get into my thoughts and reactions throughout the movie. So we start this one out with our main character, Linda Little, and we get a little backstory about her. I gotta say, tuna fish in the office is crazy. Not my first, but when I first began with my office job that I have now, I sat down and smelled tuna fish and was like, somebody's. I texted my friends and like, someone's eating fucking tuna fish in my office, and like, you're crazy. What do you care? You gotta freaking be in that moment, dude. Tuna fish, especially for someone who does not eat a lot of seafood, that's crazy. I gotta say, like, especially in the way they're set up, those cubicles, cut that. No, no. Already I'm out on Linda Little. And then she goes home. We kind of learn a little bit about her. She's this quirky, weird character. The like piece of tuna fish that Dylan O'Brien notices on her cheek. Bradley, that's his character. Gross. Like it was just gross start to the movie, and that continues when she goes home and eats off the same piece of bread as the parrot. I was like, can we not do this, please? I was really actually disgusted by Linda Little's character, to be honest, and I'm not even like, I'm open to a lot of things, but there are certain things in life, like eating tuna fish in the office, not wiping your face, like that's basic human decency. So, and she doesn't know she's doing it. She's an innocent soul, whatever. It is what it is. So we learned a little bit about the background of her job and what she's been going through. So she has been working with the same company for about 7 years. Was promised a promotion by this guy. He retires. His son takes over, and his son just gives the promotion to a man named Donovan because Donovan's frat boys with Bradley. And I gotta say, I was in a frat, and I would not give the promotion to my boys. They gotta earn that shit. You can't just give, like, that's just so blatant and also disrespectful and also doesn't make sense because Linda's been there for a long ass time. I guess her initial first impression wasn't great, and maybe there's like other things, exterior factors of people complaining about her in the office we don't see. But Donovan literally takes her paperwork, and that's another thing that happens in the beginning. She's got the sticky note on top that says done by Linda Little, which by the way is a terrible move. You have to put your name in the footnote or something. Like this was done by Linda Little. Cite yourself. If you're going to just hand off a report like that, I guess she thought she was going to the meeting, so it's kind of a tough scene there. But maybe that's a lesson for everyone. Put your name on something if you print it out and you got to bring it to the meeting. That's kind of sets up the whole dynamic of the movie where Linda gets passed up for this Donovan character who's the frat brother. And while she is at home, we also see her watching Survivor 47. She mentions she doesn't want to see Keyshawn be voted out, so there's only 3 or 4 episodes that Keyshawn's still in the game, so we can kind of figure out when this was filmed. And I'm sorry to tell you, Genevieve voted out Keyshawn, and now she's going on season 50, bitch. No, just kidding. Season 50 coverage coming soon. So excited. Was at the Survivor Idol, nonetheless. And Survivor's my show, so that was like, holy shit. Like, you hear the little music, and even though it's kind of like that fake promo music that's not even real Survivor, that shit got me hyped. I love the Survivor references. And that continues when they get on this plane. They're going to go to Bangkok in order for him to kind of earn favor back with Linda. He brings her on this plane to Bangkok so she can help explain the strategy of everything. And for some reason, Donovan and the rest of the like douchey guys have gotten their hands on her Survivor Edition tape. And terrible social move by them where she's all the way in the back of the plane and they're in like a quartet of seats where there's 2 seats in the front, 2 seats in the back, like 2 seats in the front of the room, 2 seats in the back of the room. They play it on the laptop so she can just clearly see it. It's like, if you're gonna bully, at least be smart about it. The fuck. But yeah, that was sad. And I've submitted 3 Survivor tapes right now, so can we please get me on the show? But nonetheless, I know the feeling, and if you're not confident in yourself, and especially if there's people watching behind your back, or if they think they're behind your back and they're laughing at you, that's gotta freaking hurt. So I felt for Linda Little in that moment, and that's when the tides kind of turn into at least me respecting her more as a character. So of course, we know the premise of this movie going in. If you didn't know anything about this movie heading into it, you knew that they would end up on an island anyway because it's in the promotional posters. It's part of the kind of summary commercials and everything. Obviously, if you know a little bit about it, if you've seen that stuff, but the plane does crash, and it's not as smooth of a crash as you'd expect. Like, oh, it's just somehow they tended to survive. Donovan and people are like clinging onto her, and she bites the arm. It's crazy. Where this insane 3 minutes of action, like that felt. I don't know much about Sam Raimi's style, but that felt very what you'd expect of hearing just the name Sam Raimi. everything thrown at you. And Linda is the only one strapped into her seat, so she's able to survive. The other guys try and grab onto her, and she has to bite one off, and he goes right out the window. That doesn't even come up again during the story. However, there is one more person who survives with her. It's Bradley, and they kind of give him this little leg injury that hampers him throughout the basically the 3/4 of the movie to kind of make it on equal scale of him not being able to overpower Linda physically, which I think makes sense, but also is kind of a sad excuse because we're going on the whole gender thing here too, where it's like woman empowerment, I think. So just make him be like a piece of shit who's like thirsty and starving and stuff. I think that would have been a better angle than the leg injury, but I get it. You gotta hamper him somehow, I guess. The initial landing, Linda and Bradley, she basically is trying to teach him how to be a survivalist because she knows how to do all this stuff. Was preparing to be on the show Survivor, kind of basically runs this fucking island for the next like month or so, as long as they're out there. She knows how to do basically everything, and Bradley doesn't know shit because he's like a corporate finance bro who doesn't know how to walk outside and everything basically. So it kind of goes back and forth of him being an asshole to her and then him realizing that he needs her. That's kind of like one of the major themes of the movie is like he tries to be self-entitled and be like, I'm not going to talk to you because you're Linda Little and you're a little lowly corporate salesman or whatever. And she's like, no, you need me or else you're gonna fucking die. That was a good dynamic going back and forth where like we'll get to it where there's somewhat camaraderie there by the end of it, but then it just descends into chaos. Before that though, they need real meat and Linda is going to hunt a boar. So this is one of the more insane. This was the gory scene I was talking about. She hunts a boar with like a wooden sphere or a rock sphere, and this thing pursues her and pursues her. And this made me realize that some of those boars out there could fuck you up. I know people, I think famously Robert Baratheon died via boar, but you don't realize how fucking big those things can be and how much damage they can do to you. So that scene's insane where she's just stabbing it over and over and the blood's just spilling and spilling and spilling on her face. Ooh, I mentioned on the car ride up to the movie that I'd actually passed out from my own looking at my own blood, had a little toenail incident, and it just kept bleeding. I don't do well with blood, but I was able to rein it in for that scene. That wasn't the scene that I had to look away. It was just like that just was kind of like a over the top gore introduction right there to the kind of what the movie's going on. I think a lot of people online have been talking about the boar scene. I don't know. I'm on and off social media. I really only have Instagram from time to time. I'll be back on Twitter after Survivor 50 is over. Don't want to get spoiled. So, anyways, not to wane too far off this topic. She's able to cook the boar. She's basically conquered a lot of shit, like I mentioned before. Food, shelter, water. She's got that all figured out. Bradley doesn't know anything. She's even got freaking alcohol. And they're going to drink together where they're both drunk. And she low key admits to Bradley that when she was married to her husband, she allowed her husband to drink and drive because he was a raging alcoholic. And then she would always hide his keys. But one night he just wouldn't listen and was being too much. So she was like, you know what, you take the keys and you go. And this was an interesting moral dilemma where what do you think? What do you guys think about this? Where it's the guy's being an asshole, does that make him worthy of dying? Probably not. So it was kind of an overstepping on Linda, but she had been abused through her whole life. So that was kind of an interesting thought experiment, at least in my head, of what's the morality of that. Actually, I might write that down to talk about on a off the deep end with Dub episode. But I thought that was an interesting like moral thing right there, and that's not even like a major focus of the movie, but that kind of plants a seed in Bradley's head to use later on. And this whole time he's been planning behind Linda's back, and we don't even see this on screen. But eventually he poisons her so she's not able to move, and he brings out this dog shit ass raft to go into the waves, gets like 3 waves in and just gets completely fucked. So I thought that was really poor planning on Bradley's part, and I thought he should have done more to fight to get signals out and to get outside help. And he kind of just listens to everything Linda says. She tells him not to go beyond this certain point because there's poison everywhere, which we find out what that big twist was at the end. But I thought this was a really poorly planned escape, especially with this poorly built raft. I don't know, man. I think you could have done a better job than that, or send off there's got to be a better way to do it than that raft. Once that happens, the trust is lost. They had kind of sort of reconciled and been like, maybe we'll be friends and we'll figure this out. But no, Linda needs to send a message, which this is the most jarring scene of the movie where I had to almost look away. It's a first person perspective from Bradley's point of view, and Linda is seemingly doing a frickin' castration where Bradley is unable to move, and she's got this knife and she's digging towards his private areas. And he's like, no, 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 no. Ugh, like that gives me goosebumps even now just talking about it. That was a crazy scene that had me terrified. And no, it's just a mouse. Luckily, I thought she was about to straight up pull out his penis. That was gonna be crazy. But no, it's just a little mouse. So thank God. And from this point on, Bradley basically becomes a like I don't even know what the word is. He just kind of gives up on everything seemingly and just does whatever she wants. And it's kind of like, where do we go from here? This is where the movie gets fucking crazy, where Bradley's fiance Zuri shows up with a like fisherman, boaterman, and I guess their search party had been called off. They've been gone for that long, and she didn't give up. She paid extra for to have this guy come out and see them. And Linda has this dilemma where she kind of has like fallen in love with Bradley and this idea of living out there for the rest of the time because she doesn't want to go back to living in regular society, which is like somewhat understandable. I don't know what that dumbass book is where not dumbass because the guy actually really went and did it, but he like decided to just give up on life and or to give up on like corporate life and just go live out in the wild. He ended up dying. I think it's called Into the Wild. Is that maybe that's the one? I think you got to come back to society. But I get it because it's like she's the boss out there. She's now feeling entitled and she's feeling like she's the one to run the world. So it's like, why leave this place where I have this attractive guy doing whatever I want? Maybe he's just going to be forced to be with me. And she brings them up on the cliff, Zuri and the boaterman, and we don't really see what happens initially, but it's assumed that she just kills them. It's crazy, you know. Linda becomes this psycho, where it's a crazy arc from the beginning of the movie. She was just this little old lady who, not old, you know, Rachel McAdams looks decent at points in this movie, I gotta say. She's like this middle aged woman who kind of is just a weirdo, but then she becomes this alpha boss and kills them. And it's like, fuck, man. I didn't like that. I didn't like that she had to kill them. But at this point, I didn't know who to root for. I didn't have a side. I thought both of the sides were wrong and the wrong. Bradley's like misogynist piece of shit, and now she's this psycho demon killer who's at least given 3 deaths out there. Once this happens, of course, Bradley finds Zuri's hand washed up on the shore in her ring. So then he realized that Linda killed her, and the boat, and well, she didn't realize the boat guy was there. But this just sets off insanity after insanity where they're fighting over and over again. You know, pretty entertaining, but it was kind of just like fight scenes that went on for too long of like someone's got a shotgun and the shotgun doesn't work and then you know she stabs her out the eye seat like Linda's eye is all screwed up. I didn't like seeing that. Oh, I don't like eye stuff either. And Linda of course is going to get the upper hand, which I think is the proper ending to this story. Yeah, I didn't know who I actually thought was going to win that, but through all the fighting Bradley finds a house, and I guess Linda had found this house initially because we see her see something. We see her see a boat, but we don't see her see this house. So I didn't like this house twist of all. There was just this house out here the whole time, and she basically was like cheating because I thought it would be cooler if she was actually like survivalist. But no, she has this freaking house that she can go to and has all the luxury in the world to look good and feel good and eat good. So she's not really the survivalist. She just found the house and basically scared Bradley off from ever going over there, which is smart, but also kind of takes away from a big part of it. And I don't know, just this big twist of like, oh, there was this house, and she's like talking to him through computers when he finds the house. I didn't really like that ending, and of course, it's assumed that in the house she ends up killing him after the whatever weapon he has malfunctions, and so that's now 4 dead bodies: her husband, Zuri, the boaterman, and Bradley, all dead because of her, and the guy she bit the arm off, Donovan's arm too. So Linda's got it like five kills in this movie, which is insane. And we end the movie out with Linda getting the bag and is like an influencer now, wrote a book, is playing golf on the island, and is driving around in a super nice car. So she won everything. She got rich. She became boss, became an influencer, got money. I'm surprised she even went back. She probably stayed on the island for a little while, to be honest, if I had to expect. But this movie was a crazy whirlwind back and forth. I'm going to land this one at a 7.4. You know, like I mentioned to a couple friends of mine, sometimes it is harder for me to say the things I do like in the movie that I don't like. So don't take my review like line by line. Like I probably said a little more negative things than positive things, but I thought the ending was not cool. No, the ending was fine, but just some of the ways they got there, I didn't really appreciate that part. It did feel a little cheesy at times, and yeah, everything else besides that was pretty good. It's just like there's a certain limit on a comedy horror. I think I can maybe I don't want to limit by genre, but comedy horrors especially are not something I'm really looking forward to watching in general. But 2026, the movie theaters need us, guys. So this is worth a watch. We're giving it a 7.4. I think that's a fair score, and one that's saying this is worth it to go check out. So go check out Send Help. Where does this movie compare to the other movies we reviewed so far on the channel? This is the number 62nd movie of 89 movies reviewed so far. This ties Hostiles, Awakenings, and The Bourne Identity, all four of those at a 7.4. I would prefer this one in that group of the 7.4. So this is now the top 7.4 of the Dubcast reviews. And the only other movie we really have to compare this to is some 2026 movies. So recently, the last movie review I did was The Rip. That was a 7.7. So Send Help is now the lowest of two. So not too bad. Movies at a 7.4. So we have two 2026 originals in the books in February. But that is all for Send Help. So let me know down below, did you guys see Send Help? Was Survivor a big part in getting you to go see Send Help with the clear promotion going on there? Let me know your thoughts down below. Would you rate this a little bit higher, rate this a little bit lower? The two people I did see this with were a little bit higher in the movie than I was. But it is what it is. I thought it was still a solid movie. So let me know your thoughts down below on Send Help. And coming up next on the Dubcast, the next movie review will be Good Time. After that, we have Manhunter, and then after that we have Knight of Cups. All three of should be interesting movies, unless I go see one in theaters. I try to get the 2026 recent stuff out there before I do the older style movie reviews. And besides that, stay tuned for short-term content in regards to TV shows, some tier lists maybe of stuff I'm watching coming up soon. And yeah, NFL season is over, but we'll be back for UFC numbered events. NBA playoffs coming up, NBA drafts, or NFL drafts, sports stuff still happening, and some other episodes, some sit down episodes have been fun. We had a Super Bowl reaction, which I thought was, despite my Patriots losing, was a fun time. And the, what else was there? Oh yeah, Off the Deep End with Dub, my new series that has been taking off of just sitting down having random conversations. So let me know down below in the comments if you appreciated this review, how it could be improved. Make sure to subscribe, like, dislike, do whatever you got to do to give this video some engagement. And I'll see y'all in the next one. As always, be easy, y'all.